everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 6 of 86. And last episode, all the mystery about Shin, about his brother Ray, about finding out these robots from the Legion are basically zombies, and they're tapping into brains, and Ray could still be alive, but be the orchestrator, conductor general for these robots. It's all a bunch of craziness, let me tell you. And I've got some comments. I do feel bad. I left my notebook. I usually have like a notebook like this where I keep comments and notes that I want to make for the episodes. I had it with me at work. I left it behind at work, and it was a holiday weekend, so it's been like 4 days, and I'm like, I don't have access to it. And so, and my place where I work at is locked up, so I'm like, I gotta wait till tomorrow to go get it, but I didn't want to wait any more on this episode. So I've got some comments that I'm gonna bring up, but if there's something that I missed that is in that notebook, I will be bringing up with episode 7, so don't you worry. Also, don't worry, because Malevolent or Cyber has hooked me up with episode 6, which has the correct subtitles, apparently, that the fan group has done, that the streaming service did not have correct. So the good subtitles should be on this one, so that's exciting. But yeah, just making note, C. Davis points out that EXO, and several others have made the same comment too, but C. Davis was the first one to point it out, so they get credit, that EXO means executive officer. Imagine that. So thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate it. Whoosh and Sweebian talks about how Anju is shown doing lots of, they said maternal things, but I would say paternal. I'm being #feminism here, because even though, you know, I don't like labeling like cooking and cleaning and sewing as a lady's job. I don't like doing that because I don't do those things. And I'm a woman, so I'm like, I would say parental, like parental things that you do, such as folding clothes, handing out cake with everyone, stereotypical parent-like behaviors that nurture and take care of those around them. So I definitely like that Anju kind of has those vibes with their character. Whoosh and Sweebian also noted that Kyrie was the one shown watering the flowers throughout the last several episodes, and now that she's passed, the flowers are slowly dying. But as we're talking about the Legion in episode 5, and as it's getting brought up that there are a lot of damaged brains the Legion are copying, we see the dead flowers, but then when Shin says the one brain that's not damaged, we see the solitary red flower, and I'm like, well, Ray's hair's red flower, is that a coincidence? I don't think so. So you have that. Speaking of flowers, the spider lilies, that's what they are. I was like, are those spider lilies? They're like anime dead flowers. Anytime you see a spider lily, it's usually connected with death. And so I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So cool. K.A. talked about for voice actors. K.A. brought up something that I don't think we've talked about, and I was like, is this a spoiler? I don't know if it's a spoiler or not. I don't know how to read it. But Kay said that Rika is the name of one of the characters. And we haven't really gotten into last names for the characters, so I was like, But Rika's voice actor is the same as young Thorfinn from Vinland Saga, the same as young Moriarty from Moriarty the Patriot, as well as Makio from Demon Slayer. But I was like, isn't Theo's last name Rika? I know that one, but I don't think they've addressed whether Reen and Theo are cousins or siblings. Obviously, don't spoil me. I will find out, but I was like, that name is the same, and I usually don't remember names. Theo's voice actor is actually a voice actress, and I was like, okay, cool. They play Abigail Jones from The Great Pretender, as well as Vanitas, and I was like, okay. Vanitas and Theo, I see having a lot of similarities cadence-wise with their voices, so that's cool. Raiden's voice actor is Theo from Liquor and Cigarettes, which was like, oh, a BL voice actor. Hello. I love Theo in Liquor and Cigarettes, so I'm glad Raiden's VA has that. And they're also Ada from Seraph of the End. So cool. Glad they're in this. And then Anju's voice actor sounded familiar and I couldn't place it. It's Yor from Spy Family. I was like, oh, Anju's voice actress is Yor, which again, talking about parental vibes and nurturing vibes, as well as Jian Li from the Japanese dub of Moto Azushi. She is very much typecast as a nurturing character, let me tell you, because all three of those characters have a lot of similarities. But they also are, and we found out the voice actor for Daiya is Alex from Banana Fish. So I'm like, how about that, right? And then Haruto's voice actor is Izuki Midorima from My Hero Academia. So cool. So we got a pretty solid voice cast, clearly, right? Which I'm pretty excited about. Now, I did want to point out two things I've talked about in the Discord that I did not get a chance to comment on because in the discussion, I didn't even notice them. But when I went back to edit, I was like, oh, that's weird. And so I wanted to show you guys some screenshots so that you can see. But the first thing was when Lena is walking up the stairs in the building and she sees the couple kind of canoodling and flirting, we see their shadows against the wall, and she starts to think about Shin because we see the shadows again and they're in the shape of her and Shin. And I was like, oh, even though she doesn't know what Shin looks like, I was like, the show is making a subtle little suggestion that she's thinking about her and Undertaker together. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then later, the part that really got me was when she starts to have the trip, like the mind trip from having the voices in her head, the black sheep, she starts to see all this imagery. And the last thing she sees before it cuts out is Kaya going, I don't want to die. And we see this voice of someone screaming and it's upside down. And when in the discussion, I was like, I think that looks like Kaya. And I was trying to like flip it over. In editing, if you flip the image, no, she's seeing Ray, but it's the same way that Ray is viewed from Shin's perspective when they fight. So she is seeing images from Shin's memories projected into her own mind. Now, is that a side effect of the para-raid equipment? Probably. Is that kind of freaky? Yes. What are we going to do with this information? Who knows? That's what this show is for. So I'm so fascinated, but those little notices, they're like the tiniest little edits. And I was like, it was like, gave me chills. I was like, ooh, all right. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to tackle this episode. I was going to do it yesterday, but I wasn't feeling good. And so today when I woke up and I was feeling much better, I was like, oh no, we're watching 86. There's no question. No question whatsoever. So I'm pretty excited, y'all. I hope you all are too, but we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to dive right into episode 6 of 86 and see what we get, y'all. And I'm pretty excited. I'm sure it'll be nothing that will lend to an extensive discussion. We're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Huh. Well, this episode is heartbreaking. Oh no! Daiya's just dead. Daiya and Burnt-Tail, Lecca, they're just gone. Nobody is safe in this series, and that makes me very concerned because it's just like Daiya just left. Like there wasn't even any time to mourn him. There wasn't any time to. It's just like, nope, he's gone. Bye. And it should have been apparent when they were talking about like the dancing scene and the cicadas and all that. It was like, oh well, somebody's probably gonna die. But I really, if I had placed a bet, which I'm not a betting person because I usually lose when I gamble, but if you had asked me who was gonna die first, I would have said Anju. Nope. Damn, Daiya. It just like, that was like a weight on me the whole rest of the episode. I was like, oh, just absolutely hit you. So we've got some timeline things, right? Some timeline things. There are years posted on this. We know this is 4 years ago. So this was around the time of, let's put this on here. So we have Shin, and around the time of his first year of service, it's 2144, December 17th. He finds Ray's body. And Juggernaut, and he takes the piece from it, right? He took the piece from that Juggernaut and then got his own insignia, the headless knight. Damn, he's looking for his brother's head. And so Raiden knows. Raiden has an idea of what's going on. Raiden has known, seemingly, let's talk about people that have known Shin the longest. So people with Shin. We know that Raiden is definitely one. We know that Kaya was one, and Karina. They seem to know him the longest, right? And Raiden knows that Shin is after his brother's head, trying to find it, trying to discover it, and the Legion has taken that head. Oh my God, that's just creepy as hell, right? That's disturbing. Nope. So, going through this episode at the very beginning, it's so weird to see Shin like as little baby Shin, the juggernauts and everything. The traps things left over. Shin gets inside the building. He has the little handkerchief, and it's not all cuffed and scraped up like it is now. His hair isn't all grown out, so he seems like he's younger there. His hair isn't grown out, so it seems like he's a fresh in the service, right? But he's looking for his brother. And it almost seems like he hears the voice and follows it. And then, of course, the light is shining down on the juggernaut. Just so happens to be the one where his brother is. Oh, that is so messed up. Yep, the headless knight, seeing his brother's corpse there. And yeah, the thing blew off and he sees him in the neck. Yep, but it's gone. So the Juggernauts the Legion literally takes their heads. Awesome. Great to know. So we have the OP, but I was like, where did we have in the OP? Did they spoil it to us? I want to find it to see if they spoiled who died at the end there. To go back to see that. I'm going to find that little... No, it did not spoil... Okay, so we didn't see that it was... We see somebody heavier and someone with there's two different people standing next to Kaya. There's the girl and the guy and another guy. Is that supposed to be Daiya? And then there's two other people that I don't recognize. There's like another girl. Is that supposed to be... the one guy doesn't look like Daiya though, so I'm so confused as to who these individuals are supposed to be. I guess that's the one guy that helped rescue them, rescued her and her dad from Legion. I don't know who the two others that we see on there are supposed to be, unless they're people that died from beforehand. I don't know. Huh. Interesting, but we don't exactly know who they are. Curious. But it's not Daiya and her, although now Daiya and her are going to show up, I'm sure, in the next episode. I just want to make sure it wasn't like a spoiler, but I guess it's not. So... Okay, so we're going back. What's so disgusting is that we go back to the very, let me see here. It is, what time is it? It's June. I want to go back to the beginning. My little stopper's telling me June 27th or July 27th, 2148. So 2148, July 27th is the mission that we lose Daiya and Burnt Tail. Okay. Is that one there? Okay, so 4 years later, right? Not quite 4 years to the day, but 4 years later. So, what sucks so bad is that we see these individuals, they're battling on this area where they all met up at for the first time, talking about how hot it is, and they're like, that's the spot where there was the flowers and the stuff there. And they just left the grill and stuff sitting there. It was right after we got deployed here. And they're like, would you like to dance again, Anju? Oh, that makes me feel so much worse because he's going to die in a second. So we talk about this deployment when they were all deployed there. Deployed to District 1 and Spearhead. So that was 4 months ago. So they were talking about being deployed to Spearhead for a 6-month stint. I don't understand what that... I don't want an answer yet, so don't tell me. But it said they were only expected to be there for 6 months. Like, do they just move around from different areas to different areas every 6 months? Do they not stay? I was under the impression that once you got sent to a unit, you essentially stayed there until until you died, right? Or until your term was over. I didn't realize you transferred from district to district, from Spearhead, from unit to unit. So all these people were transferred to Spearhead. So were they like, because they were the best in their unit, they were transferred to Spearhead? Is that the reason? Why for 6 months? At the end of 6 months, do they get the option of if they get to stay there or move to another district? There's still some world building stuff that's not been explained to us that they know about that Lena doesn't know about. So I'm curious, right? Because Lena makes it out to seem like they've known each other all along, like for years and years. But they've only been together for less than 6 months. That's insane to me, right? And it shows all of them getting to know each other, saying, I'm from Luscinia. And it's Karina and Kaya talking. I was with Shin before too. Okay, so Luscinia. So we got the idea that Karina, I don't know if it's Karina or if it's Karina or Kaya saying I was with Shin before. But one of them are talking about being with Shin from Luscinia. And this is April 5th when they came on. And that's around the time that Lena became a major in another unit that the other people were talking about. And they're like, say hey to Undertaker for me. Okay, so going back to episode 1, that's kind of establishing that, right? And they're like, set it there. And that's when they were having this. They're like, what unit are you from? Scale. Okay, so they all were transferred from different units. And they said, well, what about you? And they're like, Luscinia. Okay, and you, Daiya. Okay, so one of them came from Kuroto, so a couple of them came from the same unit as Shin. Okay, interesting. And they're like, Claymore in my case. And what year are you? In the 4th year. And he's like, same as me. Most people here are 4th years. And that's what's equal about all of us. It's so weird to see them all like hanging out together on the streets here, like where they've been deployed at. So, okay, so there's some weird stuff going on with this unit. So the units are not stagnant. They're not set in stone. You can get transferred from different units to other ones, right? So the question is why? Did everyone from the previous Spearhead unit die? And so they're just reassembling. They're just like, hey, we need some people from each units to kind of go to Spearhead. Who are the best of the best from your units? We'll stick them up on the front lines. Interesting. But Shin is the one that's been there the longest. And so then, yeah, they talk about all the girls that they have their eyes on. And of course, Daiya has eyes on Anju. And then we see the one guy here who died in the first episode, and he was talking with Theo, right? And Daiya wants to talk to Anju. And Raiden's just like, really? And we see the guy with the panda hat on, and he's got the glasses. We see this other guy with the short spike hair, and then we see Shin. Shin is always off by himself. Shin does not seem like he wants to get close to any of them. I'm still very suspicious about Shin. I know that Shin is like shepherding them across, I know that he's shepherding them through their journey and like helping to give them closure and make sure they don't get taken by Legion. But there's something about what Shin has done in his past as a kid, which again, as a kid, that he's done in the past that Rey got super pissed about. And Rey seems like a pretty easygoing person. So for him to get really mad at Shin and saying it's his fault that him and his parents are dying, I'm like, did he out them as not being Alban? I feel like how they look would out them as not being Alban. Did he out them as being Jihad? I don't know, right? I'm very curious to know what Shin did. Why? Because he clearly feels like he needs to have closure with his brother. He knows he believes his brother hasn't forgiven him. I'm like, Shin, I think your brother did forgive you. You're just chasing a ghost. Like, whatever is left of Rey is not your brother. It's just a memory. It's just like his last words, right? It's just battle tactics. It's not his soul. So, I don't know. I feel like Shin can't have closure until he gets his brother's head back. And that seems to be a nigh impossible task. And he has all this guilt, seemingly. But there's something about Shin that just reads to me as suspicious. Because he doesn't want to seem to get to know any of these people. Maybe because he knows he's going to lose probably most of them. And that's just his way of distancing from them. I don't know. There's just something about Shin that reads a little bit suspicious. But we don't know what that is. And so then, of course, Theo and them get all up in this. And everybody's just kind of like looking over. And he's like, please don't. And then Anju's like, did you call me Daiya? And of course, I feel so bad because Daiya has this moment where he dances with Anju and it's so sweet. I want them to be together. Now he's dead. Damn it. Hate it. Hate it. And then the fact that like his arm was like slowly reaching towards Shin when he was about to shoot him. Right. Now the question is, did he shoot him in the head? I'm just going to put it out there because with the one guy and with Shin, with the Shin with the one guy and now with Daiya. If we hear Daiya's last words to Anju again, we will know that Shin did not shoot him in the head, because supposedly we saw Lecca, she shot herself in the head so that she couldn't be taken. What's interesting is we've not seen Shin actually shoot them in the head. We've seen like a vantage point where we think that's what happens, but we've not seen it completely. So the question is, I'm hopefully wrong. I hope that I'm wrong. And that Shin is not a double agent and he's not working for Legion. I hope that I'm wrong. I pray that I'm wrong. But there's just something about the scene. I'm like, is Shin actually shooting them in the head like he says that he is? Or is he just shooting them to kill them and then letting Legion take their heads? I don't know. The fact that we don't get to see it happen makes me suspicious. And I can't help it, because Shin is away from all of them. He's distant from all of them. And you could say it's because he knows that he's going to probably lose all these people, but there's just something suspicious about it that I'm like, something just doesn't seem right. Right? And so then Daiya like tries to play it off, and they're talking about all these festivals and everything. And then they find out, the one guy says he hears at their work. They basically talk about Lena. And what's so interesting is that they make all these assumptions about her. And that's when Theo does the drawing of her as the pig. What's so ironic about this is they make all these assumptions about her character. And some of them are pretty correct. Some of them are wrong. But it's sort of like this double standard where they're making all these assumptions about her just because she's inside the walls. And then they immediately assume she's making assumptions of them. And it's like, you guys are all doing the exact same thing, right? Because there's no communication, right? And it's so interesting how they predict, and they all gather around the drawing predicting what she's like. But Kaya's not the one. Kaya's the one that's not making the assumptions, right? She's the one not doing anything. She instead goes over to Shin and then, talks to him about things. And they're like, she's some ugly woman who has to work because she couldn't get married. Which she's not married, so there's that. She's just someone that wants to save the souls and more of us mortals, help us to save us poor 86. So I don't know if she's a kind princess or a goddess, but I'd like to meet her someday if she really exists. Funny that. Meanwhile, against the cherry blossoms, we have Daiya dancing around. He gets Anju to dance with him. And they talk about him being drunk, and he's like, it's just water, so they're not drunk. But we see Kaya there. And they end up talking. He's like, I think it's okay. And she's like, you don't care. People can tell things like that. And they talk about the cherry blossoms and how they're short-lived and they all fall at once and they all bloom at once. And how she's used it as the insignia on her juggernaut. Which is so ironic, because then she's the one at the end that says she doesn't want to die, even though she chooses something so fleeting and bold. And then she's like, what's the story? And then what's interesting here is Shin says he doesn't understand the story behind his juggernaut. And I'm like, well, we saw in the flashback, he was like, had the headless knight. Like he was doing like the skull knight or whatever. So it was the skull knight that was on the drawing, not the headless knight. But it's such irony that his brother is literally headless, leading the Legion, and supposedly, we don't know for sure, but that's the guess, and that Shin doesn't quite understand what it symbolizes. And so they call Kaya and Shin lovebirds, which is interesting, because I don't get that impression at all. I get total platonic vibes from Shin and Kaya. But then Karina, of course, the moment she hears lovebirds, Karina has to interfere because she's got a thing for Shin. Why not? Gunslinger does. And so then she interrupts. And she's like, he can always tell. He's the Reaper. You're looking for your missing head. Now she says, if I pull off that scarf, do you not have a head? And it's like Shin goes to do it, but Karina like stops them because she doesn't want him to show the scar that he has. And they're like, that's why the skeleton mark has no head. So I get it. So he doesn't have to pull it down. They stopped him before he showed off the scar. So Karina seems like she knows about it, but knows that it's a sore subject and to like, let it go. Don't egg him on about it. And so they stop. And Shin just kind of goes, okay, good. We don't have to talk about it. Great. And they're like, let's make the next 6 months good ones, Reaper. And that's Burnt Tail. She's one of the ones that dies. Ugh. And they all like rotate saying that they're glad to have him. Right? And she's like, me too, Shin. Reaper. Yeah. Which is, again, he's standing by himself. They all are so happy to have him on his side, and he doesn't say anything. It just reads a little bit suspicious. I'm just saying. Just a wee bit. And he's like, yeah, you too. And then Raiden says, you're quite popular. And he's like, I'm counting on you. And he's like, it's not like you at all. Is it going to rain? And then they see the shooting stars and go to look at them. But he lets them all go. And he says, it's been 4 months and there's a lot fewer of us now. The only number that's not gone down is the one on Cujo's blackboard. So Cujo was the one that died at the beginning. Yeah. It's hard, right? Because I wish time would stop. I'm afraid it won't for the next 2 months. So again, and then when they say the next 2 months, that's when Lena gets onto the comm. So she wasn't listening into all that. So there's something about this 6 months that Lena doesn't seem to know. So, because she's not talked about like them switching departments or them being deployed in different areas or anything like that. She's not brought that up at all. So that leads me to believe that there's stuff that she doesn't know about that's going on that we, the audience, are getting to know about, but we don't exactly understand it. So they're clearly on 6 month terms, but then what? There's stuff we don't know. This show is just, and of course she doesn't want her getting on because he's like, you don't have to do this, but she's like, no, I'm going to do this. He's like, if it's too much, you don't have to. And she's like, I'm going to help till the end. But then, so there's scorpions and artillery fire, right? And we get the idea that these scorpions are like mortar. They're coming in to try to flush them out, right? And they're like, what are they doing? There's too many of them. They can anticipate our routes and ambush them. And so they talk about, like, they start with all the hiding spots and then flush us out using the low. And he says, that's a lot of effort for a bunch of guys in aluminum coffins like us. Yeah, the way that Haruto calls it aluminum coffins is terrifying, right? I'm so happy. I don't know whether to laugh or to cry, right? And then it gets to the point where if only we could use mortars. Now, Shin kind of reacted to that whole mortar conversation like, again, I'm going to be suspicious of Shin for the rest of the series, probably. But he reacted to the mortar comment like, I don't know if that would work. And then we find out later it's not going to work for various reasons. But on the battlefield here, as they're going in, Burnt Tail, she gets caught up and gets knocked aside and gets, knocked to where the stuff falls out of her ear and everything. And then Daiya was in the middle of eating something. Can someone from 6th Platoon go? Because Anju's like outside of her juggernaut trying to pull her back. But that's when Daiya, okay, Snow Witch, Snow Witch's fell and she got, so Snow Witch, Anju got out of hers and Fido was helping to pull hers out of the trench. And that's when Daiya went out to go after Burnt Tail. And he says, I'm fine. And he went to go get her. And that's when they basically used her as bait to flush him out. And they're like, Black Dog, get away from there. These little robot things that came out of the Legion that have faces are freaking creepy. Nope. And they these little face things came out like little bombs, like attacking the side of his thing. They're like little fire bombs that attacked on there. That is creepy as hell. No. And this thing is like a mouth and eye and everything. What the fudge? I'm assuming that that's what's going to try to get their brains, right? Ew. And then he says, Anju. And he blew himself up to try to blow them up with him. Oh my God. And then I can go now. I can aim from above. They'll just shoot back at you, gunslinger. And then the Legion there is like getting up onto her. And she's like, I'm counting on you. Oh my God. Oh. And she shot herself before Legion could get there. Ugh. Nope. And then it just left her. Damn. Oh my God. And then it gets blown up. Ugh. So March Hare, they're like, come back, Snow Witch, take over command from Black Dog. And then we see like the little robots there trying to limp away. And she's like, yeah, leave it to me. She says something else there, but we don't get to hear what she says. Ugh. I hate it. She said something else like, damn it. I don't know if she was saying I loved him or like something like that. And then we see all of them leaving. And so he goes. Damn it. We see like there's blood on a piece of the equipment there. Now he's there at Daiya's thing, and it's reaching for him. He's like, I can't let Daiya become a Legion. He's like, if you can't handle it, just cut the link. And she says she's going to listen to him do it, but I'm assuming he shoots him in the head. If he isn't, and it's part of this double agent stuff that could be happening, I don't know. Damn it. But then he hears his brother's voice. And he hears his brother's voice, so he knows his brother was nearby. So that's the thing. His brother was nearby. And then we see Anju, and she's clearly not all right. And we see that she's like, all her stuff's there. Oh, and that's Lecca's stuff. Yeah. Now, like, we finally lost Daiya and Lecca too, huh? That's what's kind of so sad about all this, is the idea that they just keep losing people and they don't get the luxury of grieving. Not really. They grieve, but they don't really have the luxury of doing it for long. They get like a day and then they have to move on. And that's what sucks so much about it, is that they just really have no time to process and sit and reflect. It's just like, well, they're gone. And the way that Raiden says we finally lost Daiya and Lecca makes it seem so obvious that it's going to happen. And Shin even says, he's like, it's just a matter of when. Like, they can't win this war. They're eventually all going to die. And Shin's like, the only thing really motivating Shin to keep going is he has to find his brother's head. He's like, he hurt his brother, and he's like, I need to get to him. It's just a matter of when. And he's like, you'll still fight even if you're the last one left, until you make a grave for your brother. And he's like, it's all I can do. He says, my brother hasn't forgiven me. He still blames me. So he's obsessed with his brother's head. And the thing about it is, he's like, I guess, he's like, I'm just, what does he say that? What does he say there? Oh, because he's talking to her on there. He says, I'm just in search of a missing head. That you really, I guess you really are a Reaper. Yep, and that's the one from his brothers. Yeah, because he hears Shin, and he hears him saying that it's your fault. Okay, we got this little part here where it shows him like, and yeah, it's the Legion. The Juggernaut starts activating. Oh my God, after he tore it off, it started going, everything is your fault. Oh my God. Oh my God, like it kept moving. Or is that just like in his vision? Is it just his vision of the ghost of him attacking him? And it wasn't really happening. So then we see him getting strangled. He says that mom and dad died. He says the fact that I'm about to die, everything, all of it, is your sin. Oh my God. So the question is, their parents died and he was going to die. So why did he blame Shin? What was the deal with it? Why? Oh, through to the end. I don't know why. That's a big mystery. Is like, what did Shin do as a kid that caused his parents to die and that made it to where Ray was going to die too? We don't know that. That's like the big mystery. But whatever it is, it's haunting Shin, and he cannot stop until he thinks it's his fault that Ray is in this position. So he's like, until I find Ray and get closure on this, I have to keep going. But the thing of it is, like, I think his brother long since did forgive him. I think that after whatever happened when he met Lena, he had forgiven Shin. He just wasn't able to see him yet. But Shin doesn't know that. So, Then we had the birthday cake, the milfoy birthday stuff for Lena, which, you know what? I watch Great British Baking Show. I know that milfoy is some high-end patisserie, and it is not easy to make. There is some good lamination on that pastry, so Annette did a really good job making it, and Lena's not grateful. But Lena's like, I just heard someone getting shot last night, not really thinking about it. The thing that's kind of freaky about all this is that, she's like, so what would happen, and this is, again, the 27th, so the day that they lost the mission. So this was all taking place, the conversation with Annette was taking place before she heard the gunshot, before all this, supposedly. Right before she got contacted for the battle, she was having this conversation with Annette. Now, Annette gives her a birthday present, and it's something different than the rocking chair she got from her ancient, could-be bachelor. And she says, you need to find guys that are in your age range. And she's like, well, all the guys my age, not a chance. So that's interesting. I'm curious about Annette. Is the reason why she's not into guys her own age because they're all like soldiers? Because they're all idiots and they don't know the status quo? Because there's a guy her age that's on the other side battling that she likes, and she's trying to distract herself by dating older guys? I don't know. That's interesting. But in any case, she's like, they're too childish. So she asks what happened, and Lena's like, okay, so hypothetically, if this parade had some kind of effect on a person's mind, what would happen? And she goes, oh, well, then your brain would go pop. She's like, we would pop. What did she say there? She's like, your brain would just go pop. She's like, we'd pop the processor skull right open and do a thorough exam of their brain, just like we were gonna do with the Undertaker. So she has this idea, Annette plants this idea that they were going to pop open Shin's brain and examine it. If that was the case. She's like, they were going to do that. They decided not to, so we don't exactly know what made them change their mind from doing that with the Undertaker, but they decided not to, just like we were going to do with the Undertaker. And then she says when it was done, we were going to throw it away. But for a handler, we'd give them a thorough exam and transfer them to another unit. That is pretty messed up. And that is why Lena is probably not going to tell Annette about all the freaky stuff happening to her, because she doesn't want Shin to get experimented on and get his brain having a lobotomy. No. Also, it is very noticeable that you have the idea, right, of the Legion. You have the idea of the Legion taking brains to use for combat. And then you have the idea of the San Magnolia examining brains for intel and then just tossing them. So that's creepy. Very creepy. And I get the impression that Lena's like, well, can't tell you about my problems anymore because otherwise you're possibly going to kill Undertaker and I don't want that to happen yet. So, yep. And it's also like the fact that they would do a lobotomy and kill the 86 member that was the processor causing the problem. But in Lena's case, they just put her in a different unit. Like, we're not going to do anything to you. Those other people, they're not even human, so what does it matter? Very interesting, right? And Lena's like, nope, we're fine, gotta go. And then we cut back to this was all taking place before the battle where Daiya and them died. And she's like, we'll just come back and I'll eat it later. Right? And Annette's saying, I'll make the usual cake next year. And she's like, no, this was fine. It's like, it's nothing you're doing, Annette, that's the problem. She's like, I'm just, my mind's consumed with other issues. right? And then, of course, we get the symbolism of the cake just cut in two, like just sliced in half, meaning that, yeah, Lena's just not feeling the love of San Magnolia right now. Although we do get to see the flowers that she has. They look like daisies, and they're not mums. Are they camellias? I wish I knew my flowers better, but they're yellow and red. So much different than the white lilies that she had before. Interesting. And there's like 2 of the red camellias, and then there's like 6 daisies. So, She also has a little black stuffed cat, which is what's in the bag, isn't it? Okay. Because it shows in the rocking chair. She has the rocking chair for her birthday. There's a bag, and then when we see it like in the red velvet bag, and then later we see a little black stuffed cat there. So maybe the little black stuffed cat was the present, right? Although it's kind of funny that you have Whitey, the black cat, with the white paws, and then she has a stuffed black cat too. Also, her little bulletin board where it's little pictures of all of their faces. The different parallels between her and Shin, where she's keeping a clear box with all of the faces of the people lost in them so she can keep track. That's her way of keeping track of the dead, whereas Shin has the tin. And I like the idea that her glass box is transparent so she can always see inside of it, and she always has access to those memories. Whereas with Shin, it seems that once they're in the box and it's closed, that part is just closed off to his mind. He can't see inside the box to see all the different things. He just knows that it's there. But it's like the transparency differences between those 2 ways of containing memories are interesting, right? And then she keeps the little picture of Ray up in the corner, of course, right? And so this is after the battle where she goes back to that. There's, 6, there's 7 daisies and 2 of the camellias. And she's like, and she realizes that Shin has been for years taking like 561 people's pieces from their juggernauts. He's been for years keeping troops from becoming part of Legion. So the question remains of, Shin was not always part of Unit 1, part of Spearhead. He's been transferred over and over again, so we think, to other divisions. So that's interesting. So then we have the very next day, she talks about the process of dying in battle, tries to get the mortars. And I felt so bad for Lena because she had like a whole plan in place. She had a book. She was ready to go. She had a whole like presentation made about how the mortars could be effective, and it just gets shot down instantly. Her uncle's like, nope. And so the reason behind it is he's like, well, how many machines do they have left? And she's like, 16 people are all that's left. And he's like, And she's like, look, we could take mortars. We could fire back against the Scorpions. You know, we could save the lives of the 86. And of course he's like, no. And then she kind of doubles back there for a second because he looks at her like, well, we're not interested in saving the lives of the 86. And I like that she kind of goes back and goes, well, we can lessen the attrition of the front lines and defend the nation more efficiently. She's like, fine, is this what you want to hear? It's not that we're saving lives, which should be what we're doing, but fine, it will save the nation more efficiently. Like, she tries to alter it to get him to agree. And he's like, nope. Mortars need to be reloaded after firing, and they're set up in the middle of a minefield. It's too close to the front lines. You're telling us to take that risk for the 86. And he's like, 86 can be replaced, but Republic soldiers cannot. Which is such a bullshit answer because it's like, do you not realize you're running out of 86? They're not getting replaced, and you're going to eventually run out of troops, just like what Shin said, right? But I also wondered this too. I was like, when they were talking about it, I'm like, why can't they just have 86 load the mortars? Honestly, you've got 86 running around in the juggernauts. Why not get more 86 to give the mortars to load the shells for the juggernauts? Why do there have to be Republican soldiers on the battlefield at all? Do you not trust? I mean, it seems like a control issue that they don't trust the 86 with the mortars because they think they might end up turning them around and firing them at the walls of San Magnolia, which they very well could. But I'm like, They also could use their juggernauts against Sand Magnolia too, but they don't. So I'm like, wait a minute. That part got me a little bit confused because I was like, I feel as if that's kind of a bullshit answer. Like if you have so many 86 that can replace the ones being lost, just take some of those 86, bring them to the unit to use the mortars against the Legion. Then you're not wasting Republic lives and you're getting the job done more efficiently. I was like, and plus, I don't think it's an excuse to say, oh, well, they could use the mortars against the wall. They can use the juggernauts against the wall, too. So, again, that doesn't make sense. That seemed like such a bullshit answer. I didn't like it. I can't authorize their use. And she's like, both the military and the people, they want technically advanced ethical reasons that give them no casualty. And it's the military's job to follow the will of the people. I'm like, that's such a bullshit excuse. And he's like, how many times do I have to tell you, Lena? Stop siding with the 86. And I'm like, it's so frustrating because I'm like, the 86 are saving you all. They're the reason you're alive against the Legion. What? I feel for Lena. I feel for her because I would just be like, I would be so frustrated. Like I'm so glad she's such a stubborn character and she doesn't give up because I'm like, come on, Lena, these people are being bullshit around you. Why? I hate it. It's so frustrating. I'm like, I just want them to listen to her. And she's like, but they're human. They must be suffering. And he's like, well, I have another mission, actually. Like, he just ignores her. And so they talk about this Legion base that's under development. It's been confirmed to be under construction. And he brings this out, saying it's a suicidal mission. As soon as they're ready, they're to advance immediately on the base and destroy it. And she's like, but why aren't we replacing the ones that they've lost? Why don't we get new replacements like the other units? So yeah, again, all these other units are getting replacements, but not the spearhead. I feel like they're just gathering. I feel like they just gather the best of the best to spearhead, and then they just kill them off and then replace them. Like they're actively trying to just kill the worst of the 86. Or they're actively trying to kill the best of the 86 so that they can't possibly revolt against them once the Legion's gone. That could very well be too, because you have this idea where you have these really strong soldiers. You have these really strong soldiers from other units that if Legion is gone, they could potentially lead an uprising against San Magnolia. And they're like, oh, well, we don't want that. So they believe, I do think this is maybe furthering the idea that the military here genuinely thinks that Legion only has 2 years left. So they're like, well, what we'll do is we'll send the strongest soldiers that could become a threat to us later to deal with the Legion in Spearhead. And then after 6 months, when their term's over and there's none of them left, we'll just keep replacing them until we basically sit out until Legion is gone. And then we won't have to worry about them. And then the ones that are left are not the strongest ones. We can just wipe them out. But I don't think they know that Legion is not going to go down after 2 years. That's what it's seeming like. And Lena can't really tell them that what she's heard from Shin and them, because that might lead them to like get mad at Shin and like lobotomize him. So she's stuck in this weird place. But it definitely feels that way, that they're just trying to wipe out Spearhead and what's there to try to just replace it with something new, because it's like, why don't you replace the newer units? Why aren't you doing that? And they're like, well, this base exists to support Legion in their advance. If it's not taken out now before it's built, then it'll be Spearhead that suffers. And she's like, but it's so frustrating. And then he like gaslights her and says, well, you want to save them, right? And she's like, yeah, but it'd be great if they got, reinforcements, but... And the sad thing about it all is that Spearhead is so used to it, they're just like, we didn't think they were going to help us anyway. How dare. How dare. It's so frustrating. I'm like, no! He's like, or am I wrong? Ugh. She's like, what do we do? And she had this really nice plan. All these notes. She took red ink and made all these marks and everything. Had everything all ready to go. And he just casually ignores it. I feel so much for Lena. I hate it. I hate how she's ignored. And I hate that they just have all these answers that are stupid. And so then she goes to, like, the original orders that were given out. And we see, like, what's being presented. She's like, there's the mission brief. That's what they want. And they're like, understood. And she has the little vase, the little clear plastic jar with their faces. Yep, the 5 that have been lost so far. Uh-huh. Oh, man, that sucks so much. So we see, yeah, Kaya and Daiya and Lecca, and then there's 2 others that are on there as well that I'm assuming are ones that have died under her watch that were maybe in the preview in the OP. She's like, you don't have replacements for your casualties. We're already sending you on a mission. They're like, well, it's nothing new. So we see the little cat there. They're like, we're aware of the Legion base as well. Uh-huh. So they were like, it's almost certainly a trap. And she's like, well, we don't really have a choice but to attack it. It may be more dangerous to leave it there. She's like, I wish we could have used more mortars to provide support, but I couldn't get authorization. And that's when Theo goes, oh, well, those things? Oh, I've never seen them used. I'd be surprised if they still worked. Like, nobody's ever used them before, so they may not even be functional or operational. And they're like, don't worry about it. We weren't counting on them to begin with. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. There's 16 left. Yep. Along with Shin. And they're like, stress is bad for your skin. She's like, you don't know the half of it. You don't even know what I look like. So she says goodbye to all of them, but then Shin stays on the line with her to make sure she's okay. Because she's about to, like, get off with him, and then he keeps talking with her saying, are you all right? I love how she draws him. She's not that far off, right? It's very subconscious, right? I guess she's basing it off of Ray, and he's like, are you okay? And of course he's like, your voice sounds a little on edge. And she's like, oh, well, you know, it's like, everything's fine. She's like, okay. And so then he brings up the whole idea of the chocolate. And that's when she talks about how his brother, Ray, also liked chocolate as well. And liked sweets too. And so Shin is kind of like that. I was waiting for Shin to say that he didn't like chocolate and he wasn't like him. But what's interesting about this is that she comments on how Shin reacted. She's like, you really are brothers. She's like, but you must like sweets too, right? And he's like, yeah, did my brother say that I did? And she goes, he did. He did say that. And he says, what was his expression when he said that? So Shin is trying to gauge, was my brother happy when he told you that? Was he still mad at me? What was the deal? And she's like, oh yeah, no, he smiled. And I like that her finger's kind of hiding the heart that we don't see until the very end. She's like, he was smiling when he said that. He had such kind eyes. I remember them well. And Shin says, I'm surprised and impressed you remember. Because the thing about it is, it could be that Shin does not remember his brother having kind eyes. Because in the flashback where he was like imagining his brother to begin with, his eyes were like crossed out. And the only time we've really seen him angry is when he was furious with Shin and like choking him. And that's when we see him and his eyes are not kind. They're angry. So it could be that Shin doesn't remember what his brother looked like when he was happy. That image of his brother angry is what he's fixated upon. And he's not seeing his brother for how he was. Interesting. Interesting indeed. Yeah, he's like, I'm impressed that you remember that. And she's like, it's an important memory for me. I'll never forget it. And that's how Shin is with his memory. His memory of his brother that he won't forget is his brother getting mad at him and saying it's all his fault. Whereas the memory that she can't forget is of him being kind. So their memories are kind of like, I'm like waiting for their memories to like merge, and he sees the kind Ray, and she sees the angry Ray, and like their memories, like they have this moment where they mind meld together. Like I'm waiting for that to happen, right? He's like, this time I spent talking to you is important. So she ties it back. She's like, well, I'm happy I talked to you too, right? I don't want you thinking I'm only thinking about your brother. And then she has the doki doki. Her heart is like pounding. And she realizes that she's having this like moment with him. And she's like, oh God, I don't want him to sense. Because, you know, there's this transference of emotions. She's like, is he going to notice that I'm all about him in this moment? Is he going to notice that? Oh my God, no, I can't. Sorry, I got to go. Good night. And he's like, okay, good night. He's like, good night. And then she sees the chocolate with the heart. And she's like, oh no. Yeah, girl has a major crush on Shin. And that's not going to be good at all. Girl has a major crush on Shin, and I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. I don't know. What do we do with this? What do we do indeed? And she's like, I won't forget. Not gonna forget any of them. So yeah, I'm still like in a state of shock that Daiya is dead. I don't like this at all. I have a feeling now they're all gonna die except for Shin. I don't want Raiden to die. I don't want Theo to die. I don't want any of them to die. But this series is just like, bam, done, gone. And there's nothing you can do. It sucks so much. But there's still a lot of mystery surrounding Shin and his brother and what's going on with them. So I'm curious about that. There's still a lot of mystery about this whole Legion base and what the uncle and the government knows that they're not telling Lena. There's a lot of timeline stuff that's very funky. I'm very curious about it, but no after credits scene this episode, but maybe that's a good thing. So I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, what you all think of this episode. But this episode was really good, but I'm curious to know what's going to happen next week. So not sure if I'm going to wait until the comments for the next episode, but maybe. Maybe. So we'll just have to wait and see, right? Aha. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'll be back very soon with more 86. Bye.